Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Talkin' Rangers podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 18th. We are fully a week into NHL action as teams across the league got started over the past week. And the New York Rangers are 3 games into their 2023-2024 campaign with a 2-1 record, taking care of the Sabres and Coyotes and falling to the Columbus Blue Jackets in game 2 of the season. Joe, how's it going, man? We're going to break it all down today. How you doing?
I've been good, man. It's been a lot of sports going on lately, especially
Yep.
with the Rangers starting up. So I've been pretty good. How about you? How's it
Yeah,
going?
doing good. Yeah, October is an awesome month because you got basketball soon. You got obviously hockey, playoff baseball, and then football's in full swing as well, starting last month. So the New York Rangers opened things up last week against the Sabres. As I mentioned, today we'll kind of break down the first 3 games of the season, give our thoughts, give our takeaways, recap them, and then we'll take a look at their upcoming games over the course of the next week as they'll face the Predators tomorrow and then hit the road for a lengthy early season road trip. So, Joe, I could just start here. What are your thoughts on the first 3 games as an overview before we go into each game and analyze them? What are your takeaways from the first 3 games as a whole as they sit at 2-1?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think they've actually been pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, to get 2 out of 3 to start the season is always good. At the end of the day, obviously you want them to play good in every game, but if you can get the win at the end of the day, I think that's all that matters. Um, but I thought they were good in all 3 phases of the game. Especially the neutral zone. I thought definitely this year they were much better, especially in that first game. Usually last year I felt like they were getting killed in the neutral zone, just letting teams like run
Mm-hmm.
through it. And then this year I feel like it looks like they're going to implement some sort of like a trap, which I'm excited to see if that can stop like the more high flying offenses.
Yeah, definitely. I think we were all kind of a little interested and worried, I guess. I guess cautiously optimistic as well, kind of just how this team would show up in the first couple games of the season because we saw the extremely kind of just ugly, sloppy preseason where there wasn't much rhythm. It was just ugly. We only won 1 game. And you even saw in practice where they're trying to install the new system that Lavia is bringing to the table. And we were all kind of interested to see how they would start, but I think they've looked really good. And you look at that Columbus game, which we'll get to here in a second. I mean, they had 2 calls overturned because of offsides, and they had a ton of shots. I mean, they had 42 shots on goal. They outshot the Blue Jackets 42-21. So you could even sit here and say that they could technically be 3-0 right now. So I thought they've looked really good. And you mentioned the neutral zone where they were able to force neutral zone turnover, something that they weren't able to do a whole lot of last year. And we specifically saw that in the opener against Buffalo. And you mentioned last year, the Devils killed us in the neutral zone where they, blew passes with the speed. We couldn't force the turnovers and, we really struggled. But you saw that change against Buffalo, and that's the first game we'll take a look at. What were your thoughts from that game?
It was on like I was shocked how well they played. Like
Yeah.
they absolutely dominated that game. Like they got out to the early lead and then they just turnover, just kept forcing turnovers in the neutral zone, which kept creating offensive chances. And
Yep.
everybody played well in that game. I mean, I couldn't really think of anybody who didn't play well. I mean,
Yep.
the first line was good. I don't think they scored any 5-on-5 goals, the Kreider line, but I thought the best line was the second line. I was really impressed with how well Lafreniere and Hedel and Panarin meshed with each other. They were a great line. They were flying the offensive zone. I thought the third line with Cooley, he looks pretty good. I thought the whole team effort, they just completely shut him down. And then a little concerning how they were blocking. I thought too many shots for like at the beginning of the year. Like that's not sustainable. Because as Lindgren, you saw him miss the second game. He was hurt.
Yeah.
Trouba was blocking shots. Benino was blocking shots. But I just thought overall a very good performance and just a dominating game from the Rangers.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned, all lines contributing. Kreider had the 2 goals, Mika 3 assists, and even Kreider had that 1 shorthanded goal, which was obviously huge. And anytime you could take advantage of that on the penalty kill is pivotal in games. The second line was really good. I was really happy what I saw from the second line. You saw Panarin get on the board with a goal. You saw Lafreniere score the first goal of the season, which I was happy to see that because, all of the offseason chatter and all of it, rightfully so, he hasn't lived up to the draft pick level, and he hasn't lived up to all the hype. For him to go out there in a big season and score right away was, I think, something that was definitely good and maybe took a little bit off weight off his shoulders to open up the season that way, in a season that he enters with so much pressure, needing to develop and turn into a really solid, top six piece to this team. But yeah, as you mentioned, everybody contributed. And Cooley, I really was impressed with Will Cooley. And obviously we saw him in Columbus score his first career goal. He looked really good. Anytime he was on the ice, it seemed like he was making a play, whether it was a hit, whether it was, I thought he was really good at forechecking early on in that game and throughout that game. He generated some chances. Your thoughts from the rookie, and do you expect to, continue to see that? Or the second, obviously spent a little bit of time last year, but now full season with the team.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I thought he played a really good 200-foot game, like good on the defensive side. I thought he was getting in lanes, he was using his body, and then on offense, he seemed like he was forechecking hard, bodying guys, getting to pucks, being aggressive, getting to the net, getting to like in good slots for like positioning as far as deflections or like getting into lanes where you could be open for passes. Seems like he's pretty good with his hockey sense, on top of just like an aggressive, like a player that's gonna go into the corners, get the puck, gonna throw his body around, like a guy that I think the Rangers kind of desperately need on their team, because they have a lot of good skill players, but they need more of like that hybrid where like he can be skillful, but he could also go down, use his body, and throw it around. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he's gonna have a good year.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kind of that forechecking type guy that can also score and put up points, which is definitely a nice kind of, as you mentioned, hybrid piece for this team to have. Defensively, as you mentioned, they stopped a lot of shots. Igor, only faced 24, had 24 saves, 25 shots. It kind of seemed like a light workload for him for game one of the season. He did his job, especially against Arizona. He looked great, which I was happy about. Overall, they stopped all the penalty kills. They were 1 for 4 on the power play. They obviously had that one shorthanded goal. All in all, I think this is a game. I mean, 5-1. There's not much negatives you could take from it. There's really only positives when you win a game like that, especially against a good, solid young Sabres team who finally picked up their first win last night. Just what were some of your thoughts on Igor and his first outing, of the season, coming away with just 1 goal allowed on 25 shots?
I mean, the one goal that he gave up, I thought really wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
I can't recall who shot the original shot, but I think it went off Trouba and bounced right to Peterka. So it kind of was like hard for him to save, because especially like it was deflected right to the guy's stick, and it was a good shot too. So I don't really blame him that much on the goal. But as far as game, like, I mean, he really didn't have to do much. Like,
No.
That's really nice to see, like, Igor kind of just like sitting back and not getting like not kind of have to bail the Rangers out. Like, this team could be so dangerous if he can just stay. Like, obviously, you want him to be the best player on your team, but like when he is limited, where like he doesn't have to face as many shots and odd man rushes, it's really nice to see where he can just kind of just sit back and just be a goalie. He doesn't have to like save their ass all the time. So I thought it was just a solid game.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a ton of times where Igor's has to go out there, make 30 plus saves, and we still barely win. For them to give him some offensive support in game number 1, have kind of an easy night where he didn't have to make any of these crazy saves to keep them in the game. It was a lot of just shots at him. He stopped them. It was what he does. And it wasn't, again, just a heavy workload type of night where they were getting shots at him left and right. Rangers are turning the puck over. They got a good forecheck, all that stuff. One other thing to note, too, and we've heard this a lot about this Ranger team during training camp, during preseason, that Laviolette has worked a lot on, has been the faceoffs. This is a team that improved a little bit last year with Trocheck on faceoffs, but game number 1, we saw it really dominate, where they won 38 faceoffs. They had a 63.3% face win rate on faceoffs, and Trocheck specifically went 66.67 faceoff win percentage. I thought that, they were dominating the faceoffs, and that's something good about this team, because previously they haven't been very good, and Laviolette has talked about that a lot, and they've gone through a lot of training during camp. We've seen a lot of clips of it. What were your thoughts on, the faceoffs really through the first couple games where they've done a really good job? I think only against the Arizona, they lost, I think they had less than 50% they won. But other than that, this in Columbus, they did pretty well.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like I was saying before with the neutral zone, where last year I don't want to kind of like throw Galan under the bus because it's still
Yeah.
early and he did get us the 2 playoff spots, but it seems like that was a major issue last year where they
Yeah.
did not win faceoff, getting killed. Like you said, besides Trocheck, I don't really think anybody was very good on the faceoffs. Like Heedle, not great. I mean, but that's not really what he is, like kind of like that defensive faceoff guy. But besides Trocheck, we had no one. And I feel like even this year, Zibanejad looks better on the draws. Benino looks pretty good on the draws. So if we can keep the faceoffs up, because that's a huge thing in hockey that I think a lot of people kind of don't really take into consideration as much as they should, because it's such an important thing in hockey to get puck possession.
Yeah.
And if you can win faceoffs at least above 50%, then that's really good.
Yeah, it changes everything. And for this team, they've found ways to get to the postseason the last 2 years, and they've been, I guess we could probably say, below average at best at face-off, something that seems to be paying off early on here. So 5-1 was a very good victory to start the Lavelle era in Buffalo. Really, you walk away with a whole lot of positives. Now, you move on to game number 2, which was in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. And this was one of these games where, even though it was only game number 2 of the season, it was a frustrating loss because you felt like this is a game we probably should have had. You had the 2 goals get called back because of offsides. You're missing Lindgren, and we'll start there before we even get into some of the numbers and what took place in this game and allowing 5 goals and all that stuff. Lindgren, when he is out, it is a massive, massive blow to this team. I saw a stat a couple days ago. When he's in games, like, we're crazy above 500, and then when he's missing, we're just not the same. And your thoughts on what Lindgren brings to this team? Because without him, we looked lost defensively, and you lose 5-3. And again, the 2 goals getting called back stink. It seems like it kind of took some energy out of this team on the road early on. You score 5 goals the night before, to score 2 first period goals. The next game would have been huge and continuing the momentum. So it definitely took some momentum out of it. But without Lindgren, this team they didn't look the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lindgren is one of my favorite players on this team. I mean, the way the effort he gives, the willingness to just give up his body and block shots, he'll hit, he'll even fight. He's such a tough guy, and he'll go down, he'll go to the locker room, and now we're just expecting he's gonna come back no matter what happens to him. So he brings such an energy and effort to the team, and I think he kind of takes so much off of Fox's shoulders, because I think Fox can play a little bit more freely when he has Lindgren as his partner. But he's like the heart and soul of this team, and like you said, they're around average without him, and with him, they're a completely different team. And you can tell they're not the same team without him. He's such an important player, and I think hopefully he can stay healthy. Obviously it seems like he's going to get banged up a lot, but he's such a key player to this team. They desperately need him to stay healthy.
Yeah, he seems kind of like a glue guy a little bit, in a way, where he kind of brings everything together on the defensive end. And, they had to mix around the lines a little bit defensively, and they just weren't the same. I mean, when you let up 5 goals, there was obviously something that went on there, especially against, a rebuilding Columbus team that, is they're good, solid, young, got some good pieces, but against the Rangers, you'd hope they could score a little bit less. But without Lindgren, it's certainly a negative impact. And this was the number, yeah. So with Lindgren, this was a couple days ago. So prior to the Arizona game, they were 149, 82, and 27. Without him, they're 47, 52, and 17. So it just shows they're a below 500 team without him, and well above 500 with him. And you talked about him getting banged up a lot. We even saw him get banged up, the other day against Arizona, came back in, was dealing with, the upper body. Just a guy that gets just a good physical player that brings everything together on the defensive end. So now that we've, discussed him missing and that being a big loss, what were your takeaways from this game? Because again, the 2 goals early on really hurt. They were getting good. Had a ton of pressure on that. It's not like this is one of these games where the Rangers couldn't do anything. The Blue Jackets were forechecking. The Rangers just couldn't get out of their own zone. They had chances. They had a ton of pressure on Columbus. They had 42 shots. They outshot Columbus 42-21, and they just couldn't come away with it. Columbus took advantage of their opportunities.
It looked like at the beginning of the game that they were going to score 10 goals.
Yeah.
They were coming in waves,
Yep.
they were coming and playing really good in that neutral zone trap, and they're causing so many turnovers. And I just thought at the beginning of that game that the Blue Jackets defense was terrible. Like the Rangers were swarming them, and then you get that goal by Gustafsson, and then okay, big goal early in the game, kind of like the same thing with the Sabres, where you feel like you can kind of drop back to that trap and keep causing turnovers. Then I believe Hedl scored the first one that got called back.
Hedl called back, yeah. That was the first one after Gustafsson.
Then that goal gets called back, and then Zibanejad scores. Then that gets called back. So it kind of takes you a little, like takes them a little back, where you see 2 goals get called back, kind of hurts your momentum, and then kind of let Columbus get back into that game, kind of evening it out. And then obviously they get those 2 goals towards the end of the period, kind of deflated the Rangers a little, I thought, in that first period. One takeaway, though, I want to say, though, is I thought Zach Jones was horrible. He's just not a good. He's not big. He's not big. He gets bodied. Like, I just don't think he's a good defenseman.
Yeah, and that one goal, the guy just didn't have enough speed to get around him. Like that one goal, I forget exactly which one it was, but I don't know if I forget if it was one of the first period goals where they scored 2, or if it was in the second period, but he was in front of his net front presence was just not there, and they had a wide open shot in Igor. He didn't look good. He was, and again, just it shows you what, without Lindgren, the depth with pieces like Zach Jones might concern you a little bit, where can you trust him in games that Lindgren misses to truly step up? He definitely didn't do it in his first test of the season, but yeah, this was frustrating. You know, Boone Jenner had a phenomenal game, had a hat trick for Columbus, the captain for them. Again, you talk about, and I'm not blaming the refs because they were offsides, but the difference from scoring 3 goals in the first period to walking out of there down 2-1 is completely different. And again, it just took the momentum right out of them to open up 3-0 on the road like that, coming off a 5-goal night, as we talked about, would have been huge. Something that, you know, they were still 57.6% on their faceoffs, so they were still winning a lot of faceoffs. I guess you could probably agree that it just seems like one of these games where the hockey gods just kind of weren't on our side, where it's just one of those nights where missing a big piece in Lindgren, had the 2 goals get called back, and Columbus just took over.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a horrible game. Like, I mean, obviously it's never good to get 5 goals on Igor, but
I think some of it was defensively.
I didn't think any of them were really his fault. I mean, the one where Jones turned the puck over, then I remember there was like a deflection by Boone Jenner. I think that might have been the second goal on a power play. I do recall one of the goals in the third period. The 5th goal was like a odd man rush, 2-on-1 backdoor. Nothing you can do on that. Again, you don't really like to see the 5 goals, but again, they did dominate the game, but at the end of the day, they still lost. So
yeah, Columbus also had 27 block shots compared to the Rangers' 12. So they were certainly a lot better in front of their goalies, and just unfortunate. Look, it's going to happen. It was the second game of the year. You don't want to overreact. Will Cooley did score his first goal in this game. Was definitely a positive, something to take away. Hopefully the first of many for him, throughout his career here with the Rangers. So you now move on to Monday night's win over the Coyotes in the home opener. I like the pace of this game early on. You know, a lot of good hitting, a lot of good, the Rangers early on, good forechecking, physical game. It was a kind of just a game where they were putting some pressure on net early on, and then it seemed as if it kind of evened out a little bit. Arizona started to play better, and the New York Rangers escaped with a close victory, and they get to 2-1 on the season with a 2-1 victory. Igor in this game was great. We talked about him in game number 1 not having to do a whole lot. Well, this game he did a lot, and Trocheck was able to seal with a power play goal in the third period off of the deflection. Your thoughts on this win, and specifically the performance of Igor stopping that penalty shot, which was huge, and making a ton of big saves for this team.
I think the funny thing about this game is it was definitely his best game, but the goal that he gave up, I think, was definitely the worst goal he's given up all year. Like, there was not really a screen. I know it was on the power play, but he should have had that one. But besides that, he was unbelievable. I mean, you said the Zucker penalty shot stop was really good.
Yep.
When he gets locked in, it just feels like the other team is not going to score on him.
Yeah,
like it's going to take something crazy for him to give up a goal. But he was definitely the best player on the ice, which I said before. Like, you don't really want to rely on him a lot, but like there are going to be games where he's going to have to be the best player, and he got them that win. It wasn't a great game. I thought like they played okay. It wasn't bad. I
Yeah.
thought they let Arizona, like they're a frisky team. I
Yep.
think people don't give them enough
Hmm.
credit.
Yep. Yeah, I
But
totally agree.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Arizona they're an under the radar team. I mean, you just look at their schedule so far. They beat the Devils 4-3. They lost to the Rangers 2-1, and they lost to the Isles 1-0. All their games have been one scored. I mean, they beat the Devils. I mean, it's a big deal for a rebuilding team against a team that's, one of the Cup favorites. They only lost by one against the Rangers, and they lost by one, the other day. And defensively, they've been solid. So the Coyotes, even though on paper you look at them and they get made fun of a lot with their whole arena situation, and they're just not very good. They were really bad last year, but they are an under the radar team that through the first 3 games has played really hard. And the Rangers obviously, were able to come away. Now, this was a game where the Rangers penalty kill was phenomenal because they stopped 2 5-on-3s defensively and Igor. That was great job by them. Your thoughts on them stopping 2 5-on-3s? I think from a Coyotes perspective, you walk away and say the fact that you can't convert on 1 5-on-3 opportunity probably tells you shouldn't win the game, but a credit to this Rangers penalty kill to stop those 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing against the Sabres where
Yeah.
they were just blocking shots, getting into lanes, aggressive when when the Coyotes players were like turning their back towards the boards or anything or going down low to get the puck, they were on top of the guys, like I said, getting in lanes and giving Igor a chance to see the puck. So I thought the penalty kill has been really good this year.
Yeah.
Just a matter of just blocking shots. But I don't know if that's sustainable early on. It can be because, all that adrenaline and that juice to start the season. But as the season wears on, I don't know if they're going to be able to block as many shots as they're going to. But again, really good penalty killing, especially on a 5-on-3. I mean, that's so hard. I mean, they have so many talented players on that team now. I mean, I was really impressed by Logan Cooley. He seems like he's going to be a really good player. They got Schmaltz, they got Keller. So to be able to stop those 5-on-3s, I thought was a huge, huge game for the Rangers and huge part of the game where they kind of could have gone the other way if they convert on 1 or 2 of those. So I thought it was a big part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But definitely. I mean, penalty kill, stop a 5-on-4 to begin with is big. Stopping the 5-on-3 is obviously huge. And then they were also 1 for 3 on the power play. You had the Trocheck goal, as I mentioned earlier, was on the power play to win it. And the first goal, going back a little bit here, the first goal assisted, Mika, beautiful pass to Kreider. I felt like it was only fitting that those 2 guys would score the first goal in MSG of the season because they, they're so close and they've been, such a big piece on the first line for this team. Did you kind of feel the same way? It was like it felt like only fitting that they, the first goal was from Mika to Kreider to get things started at MSG.
Yeah, either way, it was going to be like 1-to-1. Like it was either going to be
Yeah.
Mika from Kreider or Kreider from Mika, which it was. So
Yeah,
those guys
definitely.
they've been here for so long, and I mean, I can't say anything bad about them. I mean, they love being a Ranger, and it's just so great to see them play well.
Yeah, totally. They're 2 big pieces to this team, and really a part of this core, this Ranger squad. So moving on here from the first 3 games of the season, when you look at just some of the stat leaders here, Kreider currently leads the team in points with 5. He also leads the team in goals. Fox leads the team in assists. So those are some of your point leaders so far. Outside of, Kreider, Mika, some of those guys that we talked about, even, Panarin, who have been some of these other guys that maybe stuck out to you? We talked a little bit about Cooley. Any guys kind of in the bottom 6 that have stuck out to you so far this season through 3 games outside of, some of the ones that we've already talked about?
I feel like it's like you're saying, as far as like the point wise, it just seems like the veterans are kind of carrying the load right now. Like I know like Kreider's got the 4 goals. I think Panarin, Fox, and Zibanejad all have 4 points too, so they're right up there with him. So it's a good start to the season for them. The younger guys, like I don't think they're playing bad, but I mean, again, they don't really play the power play. And I feel like in those games, at least the last 2, there was a lot of special teams going on. So like Hedel, Kako, and Lafreniere, and even Coley don't really play penalty kill and power play. So the ice time, I feel like, wasn't really there for them. But I thought they've all played pretty solid. I think Hedel's had some bad luck. I think he's playing pretty well. It just he had a drive to the net against the Coyotes, which I thought was a nice move, and then he had the goal called off. But I think they're gonna be good. I think like once the season gets further on, I think you'll see these guys start putting up points, even though they're not playing the power play. as far as like the bottom six guys, I mean, I think they're there. They're who they are. Like, they're not going to
Mhm.
really score many goals. They're just there to kind of throw their body around, get the forecheck going, be solid defensively, and then get off the ice.
Yeah.
But there is one guy, I don't know how you feel about him, Blake Wheeler. It looks kind of concerning to him. As the last two games, they were double shifting Panarin in his spot.
Yeah.
So, what are your kind of thoughts on Blake Wheeler so far?
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit of uh, I don't know if I want to say a little bit of age catching up to him, maybe. It could be. I mean, it's plus minus for now is -2. It's not great. He obviously hasn't logged a point yet. Um, Wheeler, I don't think he's looked great. I think I agree with you. It may be a little bit of age, but I kind of hope that it's just 3 games in, new team. He's kind of just hopefully finding a groove eventually. But I do want to give a lot of credit to Panarin. Not that they would just purposely play Panarin 2 shifts just because he's that good, but Panarin's been really good. He looks a lot faster. I don't know if it's the new haircut, if it's taken some weight off
Probably.
him, but he looks faster. He looks a little bit more aggressive. He's taking, seems like he's taking some more shots on some of the shots last year they might have passed up. I mean, um, I've really liked what I've seen from Panarin. He's looked really good in my eyes, and certainly a guy that I think if he continues to play this way after the way the postseason went last year, I think it was pretty important for him to get off to a pretty fast start, and he's looked really good. And as I mentioned, important, and he's definitely done that. But yeah, Wheeler he's been. I hope he gets going, but he hasn't. He quite hasn't looked like the guy that I thought. I was really excited to see what Wheeler can do, but again, just 3 games into the season, and that's 2 for the guys that are playing really well. It doesn't mean they're going to go on and be great this year, right? It's only 3 games in. You got 79 more games to go, so it'll be interesting. But all in all, they stand 2-1. I think there's been a lot of positives so far to take, especially after what we saw from the preseason. To come out and play like this, it kind of shows that the preseason sometimes really doesn't mean a whole lot. Um, and now they get set for a couple more games this week. So the schedule this upcoming week, the New York Rangers will face the Nashville Predators tomorrow at MSG. And then after that, they'll hit the road for a 5-game road trip against Seattle. They'll play the Flames, they'll play the Oilers, Vancouver, and then they'll finish up with the Jets in Winnipeg. The next time they will be home is November after tomorrow. So long road trip earlier in the season. Just to kind of preview the next couple games here. Obviously Nashville tomorrow, Seattle, and then the Flames. What are your thoughts, those upcoming games beginning with the Predators tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen much of those Western
Yeah.
teams. I've seen like bits and pieces of like kind of like highlights or like some clips of that, but again, like I think there's like not really any bad teams in the league, so like you're gonna get a good performance most nights from these
Mhm.
teams. I think it's important that they win this game tomorrow just to have
Yeah.
a good vibe going out west,
Yeah.
because like it's tough to go out west and play those road trips, like the long flight, and then they got to go from different parts of Canada. I know they're starting in Seattle, but I don't think any of those games are going to be easy. They're gonna have some tough battles. I mean, the Predators have a pretty good defensive team. They got Soros, Riley's pretty solid both ways. Phil Forsberg, so it's gonna be a tough game. Like I said, no game is gonna be an easy game for the most
No.
part. And the teams out west, like they're getting better. They're getting like there's some solid teams out there. Like as you saw, Kraken. The Kraken last year beat the Avalanche, and then I think the Flames are a little underrated. So it's gonna be a tough trip, but
Yeah.
they just got to continue to win games and get points.
Yeah, anytime you head out west is never quite easy. I will say though, Seattle has not been off to a very good start. 0-3-1, I believe, on the season. So that could be potentially a matchup there. But they're a team that was in the postseason last year. Obviously, young expansion team. Anytime you head out west, anytime you head on those West Coast road trips, time change, travel, all that stuff, especially early in the season like this, where you're still trying to build an identity and put into a new system, hitting the road that early on definitely is a challenge, and we'll see how they play out. I mean, for us, our sleep schedules will be a whole lot messed up because you'll have games starting 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern on the East Coast. But tomorrow, Nashville, Seattle, and the Flames, and then we'll recap those games in the next episode. So, Joe, any final closing thoughts here as we get ready for the Predators tomorrow night, and then obviously they'll hit the road after that.
Just continue. You just got to continue to build on games, and as the season progresses, just keep playing better and hopefully get as much health as you can get. Like, I know a lot of teams are starting to already get injuries, but
Yeah.
you want to just make sure most of the core guys can stay healthy and just keep getting better.
Yeah, I totally agree. Prediction: when is the first time we see Jonathan Quick?
I think
'Cause I
he's
know,
going to play in Seattle. I think he's going
yeah,
to play that first game. I think because I think Igor is playing tomorrow, and then I think you'll see Quick at least 2 games in that road trip.
yeah, because then after Seattle, they get a couple days off, so I could see like them giving Igor a good chunk of time off because I believe they play Saturday in Seattle, and then I think they get 2 days, Sunday, Monday off before playing the Flames on Tuesday. So I could certainly see Jonathan Quick early on in that trip as well, getting some action, and we'll see what he could do. Do we get vintage Kings Jonathan Quick? Probably not, but if he could just be average, I'll take it because that's what we've gotten the last 2 years. I mean, Igor's healthy. All you need is just competent backup. That's the way I view it. So,
Yeah, I just don't want them to kind of run him into the ground. Like, like he hasn't really had many injury concerns, but there was a couple times early on where there's a couple injury scares where like I think he hurt his groin once or twice.
yeah.
You don't really want him playing like Lundqvist would play like 60 games. You don't really want that, but I mean, if he can continue to stay healthy and he stays hot, then I'd be okay with that. But I have a lot of trust in Benoit Allaire, the goalie coach, to kind of get Jonathan Quick to at least be an average goalie. Like that's what they need, just an average goalie.
Yeah, just competent. And you want Igor fresh too for later on in the season, assuming the postseason, will be played this year for the New York Rangers, which we all expect. So that'll do it for episode 3 of the Talking Rangers podcast. We'll be back next week recapping these upcoming 3 games here starting tomorrow night against the Predators, Rangers 2-1, and they will continue their 2023 campaign obviously tomorrow and then hitting the road after that. So as always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.